let's go ahead and get started. And I want to introduce both Julie as well as Annie, and then have you guys kind of give a little bit more about your background. And then we're going to dive into this, it's going to be kind of an interview style webinar today. And I'm going to be, throwing out some questions to both Julie and Annie and having them kind of share with you a little bit about how they got started in multifamily syndication and how you can actually do that same thing. So I've known them for over a year now and have done some work together and have really enjoyed working with them. Their group is called Goodegg Investments. And so we're going to be diving into some of their background and story, but I'll turn it over to, I guess, Annie first and have you share a little bit about you and your background. And then I guess you guys can tee each other up for Julie to introduce herself, and then maybe even talking about the story about how you guys actually came together as well, because that was an interesting story too.
Absolutely. Well, actually, our Julie's and my story pretty closely mirror each other, even though we didn't meet until about a year and a half ago now. So we both got our start through house hacking, me through duplexes and Julie through renting out a bedroom in her humongous house. And so we fell into real estate that way. And over the last 10 plus years, I think we've both found real estate to be a great way to build wealth and passive income for our families. And then about a couple years ago now, we both learned separately about passive investing and investing in these larger commercial properties, and realized that it is the perfect fit for our busy family life, because we can have all the benefits of real estate with none of the hassles of being a landlord. And then, so when we met about a year and a half ago, we had both started down this path of helping friends and family to learn about these types of opportunities as well. And that's where we grew Goodegg Investments from, is this passion for helping to spread the knowledge about how to get involved in these opportunities.
Yeah, perfect. Hey, everyone, Julie Lamb here. So I got started in real estate investing about 10 years ago, as Annie had mentioned, and I was just doing the traditional, get married and buy a primary home, because that's kind of what we're taught to do to grow our wealth. And I started buying more properties in 2009 and 10. And then as the market cycle started to mature, I thought about exiting those properties and was trying to think about what the next best step was going to be for my money that I had, all the equity that I had come into. And I realized, well, I thought at that time that we were on the brink of a recession, which I always giggle about now, because here we are 3 to 6 years later, and nothing has happened. And I thought we were on the brink of a recession. And so I thought, moving out of an appreciation market and moving into a cash flowing market was going to be the best thing for my money. And so I started buying single family homes, which I feel like is a rite of passage for multifamily investors, right? You think, okay, I know I want to get into real estate, but I don't know enough about multifamily. It's too big of a thing. I don't know enough about it. I'm just going to go out and buy a rental property. So that's what I did. And luckily for me, didn't get too far down that path before I realized that I was just getting myself into a whole lot of work. And I, being a landlord isn't really what I wanted to do. Getting the phone calls about evictions and break-ins and, a whole bunch of other things that happen when you're a landlord was not interesting for me. Especially not for the $200 to $500 per door, right? Like that was the part for me that I couldn't get over. I was doing all this work for like $200 a month, and I'm like, this is not scalable, right? So that's when I knew that I wanted to get into multifamily, to be able to do, instead of 1 or 2 doors at a time, to be able to do 200 or 300 doors at a time. But as I researched multifamily more, I realized that, I needed broker relationships to get the good off-market deals. I needed, capital partners to be able to help me fund the deal. I needed asset management experience, none of which I had. And so I kept persisting, and I said, I want to get into multifamily, and reached out to a bunch of folks who were buying multifamily properties and said, hey, I want to partner with you on a deal. I have some money. Can we partner? I'll do whatever you need me to do. And the person that I reached out to told me, hey, look, I don't need anyone to be active, but I do need some passive investors. And I said, passive? This is really interesting. Talk to me more about that. And so that was my introduction to becoming a multifamily investor, was actually on the passive side. So I started out there, invested in a couple of deals passively. And for me, that was when everything changed. I realized this is what I wanted to do more of, right? I wanted the cash flow, I wanted the equity, and I wanted the tax benefits, but I didn't want all the headaches that come along with owning real estate. And so to be able to have all of that without the part that I didn't like was like, oh my goodness, this is it. I want to do more of it. And so that was my introduction to multifamily investing. That was about 3 years ago. And then since that time, Annie and I, partnered up together. We've done a number of deals now together in a number of different growing markets across the US. And we've found a lot of success together, I think, primarily through our partnership and the synergy of our relationship. So it's been, a good thing for us. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me. Oh, you're on mute, Dan.
Here we go. Why don't you walk us through and kind of take us through a little bit about what it looks like for you and your group and kind of the process that you guys go through when you're doing a deal.
Annie, you want to take that one?
Sure, I'll take that one. So when we're doing a deal, first it starts with the partners that we're working with. And a lot of our investors ask, where do you invest, or what types of properties do you invest in? And we always point back to the people. And so that's the first and most important piece, I would say, is the vetting those partners who we're working with. So our role at Goodegg Investments primarily is to help to raise the capital to close a deal. We, of course, have other roles in due diligence and oversight, but our primary role, at least at the onset of a deal, is to bring in the capital. And so we're finding those partners, and then when they have a deal that meets our criteria, then we will open up that deal to our investors. And so what that looks like is we have a whole system worked out on the back end. We used to do this one phone call at a time. We'd have a deal and a deal deck, and we'd get on the phone and we'd say, hey, here's the deal. Would you like to invest in it? And it would just take so much time. And so now when we release a deal to our investor base, we send out a single email with everything that they need. And then we've already had those conversations with them. So we know them, they know us, we know their investing goals. And so we send out that email, and then they have everything they need. They can reach out to us if they need to for questions and additional insight into the deal. And then they can then put in what we call a soft reserve to reserve their spot in the deal. And then we'll reach back out to those people on the soft reserve list to have them make a firm commitment. And then we help shepherd them through that process to get to the point where they're signing the private placement memorandum and then wiring in their funds. And so all of our work, I would say, is at the front end of a deal. And even before we have a deal on the table, because remember, we're talking to all those investors and educating them. So in between deals, we're educating investors. When we have a deal on the table, then we are actively reaching out to investors and helping them understand what a specific deal is about. And then once a deal is done, then we continually update our investors on what's going on with the project.
I think one of the things that I like the most about what you guys do is the process that you have in place, because I've seen so many other, offerings come out from other groups and various things like that. And, you don't really know what to do when you receive some of those emails. It's like, should I reply to the email and tell them I'm interested, or do I need to, there's no buttons to click on or anything like that to say, hey, submit the soft reserve. And, I've worked with a couple other operators, and they've actually, haven't really had a very clear way or process. And, I'm trying not to use any names or anything, but I've worked with some other people that, I asked them, they're like, a month before closing. And I'm like, so how much do you have committed for the deal? And they're like, oh, we got it all committed. I'm like, So are they like people that have gone to a website and fill out a form, or, oh, they're just verbal commitments? And I'm like, okay, well, have they gotten the PPM yet? And they're like, oh, well, the PPM's not ready yet. And I'm like, well, you're 30 days before closing and you don't have a PPM, or anybody has actually written a note saying, hey, I'm actually, gonna soft reserve this. And that's one of the most crucial pieces, I think, with being in an effective co-sponsor and be able to raise capital, is to be able to, have the process in place to be able to take the investors seamlessly from we have a deal all the way to the point of them actually, reviewing that PPM. And for those of you who are new and might not know what that is, that's that private placement memorandum. That's the documents that houses all of the, the legal jargon, if you will, that the SEC wants us to provide, and letting you know the risks and things like that of the actual investment, but also includes things like the operating agreements and the investor questionnaires and the subscription agreement and, distribution details and stuff like that. But bringing them all the way down the line to the point of actually saying, yes, here's the signed PPM and here's the wired funds. And then, of course, even post, closing and receiving funds, of actually having that ongoing communication. And the biggest thing, I think, is just having that process in place.
I think that process also gives investors a certain peace of mind and confidence. People like to know that they want to feel that like there's order and that there's systems. As if you're handing over $50,000 minimum to someone, you want to make sure that you feel confident, working with them. And part of that, at least for me, was finding someone, when I was first looking as a passive investor, was finding someone who I felt like was really organized. And that told me a lot about how they, operate the property. And that really has served me very well. In the last 3 years of deals I've chosen to invest in and ones I've decided to avoid. And so when you think about that, it's such a small thing, but it communicates so much, right? And I think that having those processes in place really has helped us to grow our business, because we're not coming across as like sloppy or how do I do this, where people are left with a big question mark. They know exactly where to go, how it works. And, they move, like you said, they move through the process very seamlessly. So I think that gives them a lot of confidence. So, for folks who are out there looking to kind of, get into this business, I think don't underestimate the power of, attention to detail and systems.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's also important for, people like, Goodegg, that says, hey, I'm going to go find some other people people to co-sponsor with that we want to work with. And you want to make sure you find somebody that also that represents you well from that operator side too.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, because it's all about that brand power, in addition to the process, before people get to your process, they get to your brand. They have to first connect with your brand. What are you all about? What is this whole passive investing thing you're trying to sell me? People have to build that trust and connect with your brand first. And then they have to see how you communicate. Before they're going to plunk down $50,000, they want to know, how are you as a communicator? What's your message? How are you going to partner with me on an ongoing basis? So things like sending out newsletters, blog posts, videos, educating people, letting them know who you are so that they can start to form that relationship with you. And then you get to the process piece. And so once they get comfortable with you, they know your brand, they trust you, they've had a conversation with you, then you get to that process piece. And then they're comfortable enough with you at this point that they're like, okay, I know. They don't even second guess that we have a process. They know from everything else that we've put out to them already, they know we've got it handled. They know that when we send out a deal, it's going to be organized. The process is going to be organized. They're going to be taken care of. Their money is going to be taken care of. So they've already gotten those cues through our brand and our messaging so that by the time they get to the process, it's a no-brainer for them.
Yeah.
Well, and so a lot of people think, you can just, build out this process and all of a sudden, the investors will come to you, right? And so it's not true, right? There's a lot more on the back end of actually trying to fill the funnel of investors, actually get them through the process. And so let's shift here a little bit too and kind of talk about how both of you have been able to scale your business and also being able to reach more people with these types of investments.
Well, I think one key that you said there was that fill your funnel with people, but what type of people? And I think that's where we stumbled early on. Was we thought, let's fill the funnel. Let's put anyone we know into this funnel. Anyone who has $50,000 to their name, come on, get in line. We've got room for you. But we quickly realized that because our messaging was so broad, it was too generic to really resonate with anyone. And so what we had to do was we really had to gain clarity on who exactly we were trying to target. It wasn't anybody with money. It was a very specific subset of people who have money to invest. And for us, it was working moms who wanted to create passive income for their families. Now, a lot of people ask us, well, doesn't that exclude men and people who aren't moms? And, you know, a funny thing happens is when you get crystal clear on who your target audience is and you start to communicate directly with that person, your messaging and your brands start to resonate with more people, even outside of that target audience. And so I think that was a big piece for us, was figuring out who that target audience was, and that completely changed the face of our website, all of our materials, the messaging that we were putting out, how we were communicating with people. We weren't excluding people, we were actually getting more people into the funnel because we had that clarity.
Yeah, I would say another thing that has really served us well is also putting education and the desire to want to help and give and add value first. Before we even start talking about like, hey, we have an opportunity for you, all this and that, it was just came from a sheer desire of wanting to share this investment opportunity that we had found to be successful for our personal financial, household. And we just wanted to share that. And so I think that that has really served us well as we've moved forward in our business, is we don't come first with our hand, out asking for something. We come first saying, we're here to help you. And then how can I help you? And that has served us much better, far better than standing around and asking for, hey, can I have your money? So I think that that's another thing to think about, is when you first get into this business, how can I add value? Who can I connect with, right? Like thinking about your target market, who are the groups of people who I can connect the best with, who will identify with me and listen to me, first of all. And then how can I then add value to their lives? And then now you're creating this, because you're not standing with your hand out, you're standing there saying, how can I help you? Totally different. And I think that's been something that's served us really well as well.
What are some of the most common, or not the most common, but what are some of the biggest misconceptions that you've probably heard about, or maybe some other people might have heard about doing some of these types of syndications?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, go for it, Annie.
I think one of the biggest ones that a lot of newer syndicators trip up on is they will focus on, they'll take a course or they'll go to an event and they'll learn the underwriting. And they think, okay, now I know how to analyze a deal. Now I can find a good deal. And they go out and they talk to brokers and they look at deals and they finally find that one that pencils. And they're like, oh my gosh, I have found it. It is here, right in my Excel spreadsheet right here. This is gold. And then they talk to their broker and they're like, great, we got this under contract. Now we got 60 days, 30 days, 60 days to close. Okay. And then they're like, okay, now what? Okay. Now we have to raise the money, right? We have to raise the money. And then they back out and they think, oh crap. Okay, I have 30 days to raise $1 million, but I haven't talked to anyone yet.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big trap that a lot of newer syndicators fall into, is they focus on the deal first, but they don't realize that it's those relationships, those investor relationships, that take a really long time to develop. And you have to know what to say and the right things to say to help people get to a point where they're ready to invest with you. And so a lot of people just skip over that part and they assume if I get a deal under contract, the investors will come. Like I open the funnel and the investors will come, right? And it doesn't happen that way, because by that time you're going out and you have this deal, you're talking to people for the first time. Sometimes people haven't heard of syndications before. You're talking to them about these opportunities for the first time and you're trying to sell them this deal. They can smell the desperation a mile away. And we've seen a lot of newer syndicators really trip up on this, and then they have to end up giving away more of their deal than they wanted to, or having to partner up with people last minute, and it's never a good situation.
Yeah, I would just add to that I think, a lot of folks who get into this business, they think that raising money is too hard, right? And so that's why they go and do the deal first. They look for the deal and they think the money will come. But I think that when you are able to change your mindset about how you are presenting this opportunity, right? See that I didn't say like asking for investor money. You're making this an opportunity for people that kind of like changes everything. So I think that's another, important piece too.
What would you say has been the most challenging part about what you guys do now?
I guess I would say, knowing who to say no to, and that goes for, operating partners as well as investors. Early on, I think we were more willing to just take whoever in investor wise, and luckily we've been able to scale and grow. We're able to say no to people, right? But I think knowing who to say yes to and knowing who to say no to is something that's kind of hard, right? Because if you partner with someone, an investor or an operator, and it was the wrong decision, you're going to pay, you have to live with this partnership for 5 years, a minimum, and so you want to make sure that if you see a potential operating partner that might not be a perfect fit, if it's not great and wonderful today, it's not going to be great and wonderful 5 years down the road when you're being dragged through potential situations that are uncomfortable, right? So the opportunities will always be there, but knowing which ones to take on and which ones to say no to, I think is something really hard, especially when you're in the growth phase of your business. You really want to, you just kind of want to take everybody that comes your way. But I think, being very, cautious about that and looking at it very carefully and really thinking about the long term will serve you well, down the road in the business.
I think something else that has been really challenging is, building this brand and building the processes that we have and the systems that we have now. It didn't happen overnight. Over the last 18 months or so, we've done over 20 deals. And so in each one that we do, we are trying something new. We're seeing what has worked from the last deal, and we're seeing, okay, what can we try differently this time that will make it a little bit easier, a little bit better for our investors. And so that has been something that we continue to work on, actually. And it's not easy by any means, because every time we're looking at it with fresh eyes and we're trying to fix problems before we get to them, and think ahead. And so now, we're at a point where we have all these tools in place that we've researched over the last year and a half. We have tools and we have systems and we have processes in place that we've built out really brick by brick, one piece at a time. So that's been another big challenge that we've overcome the initial challenge, but I think there's a lot more growth to go, a lot more potential as well.
So we're fast forwarding a couple years into this, brand building of Goodegg and various things like that. If you were to go back and kind of start over today, what are a couple of things that you would maybe do differently that now, knowing fast forward, 2 years later on the road of where you are now, what maybe are some things you might have done a little differently?
First thing I would do is get crystal clear on that target audience up front. I mentioned it already, and I'll mention it again because it's so important to know exactly the people that you're trying to serve. And so that was something that we didn't do early on that I definitely would start with. If we were to start Goodegg over again, we would first get clarity on who we're trying to help. And then I think, as far as, everything else just falls into line after that. Once you figure out, and this is the level of clarity that I'm talking about when we talk about our investor avatar, is we know what her day-to-day looks like. We know what magazines she reads. We've named her Jen. We know how old she is. We know how many kids she has. We know what her kids like to do. We know the name of her dog. This is a fictional person, but she is very real and she is very much a part of our business. And so you can start to see when you think about Jen as a working mom, she's got yoga pants in her closet, but she doesn't ever get to make it to yoga class because she's so busy doing the carpooling. So you start to get a sense of who she is and what she needs and how Goodegg can fit into her day-to-day. And so then you start to think, okay, if she were to come to a real estate investing website, what would she want out of it? Okay, well, she's probably intimidated by finances, by investing. She's got all this other stuff going on. How can we make our website and our materials as approachable and welcoming and as inviting as possible for Jen? So then we think about, okay, well then the website has to look a certain way. It has to communicate certain things. And so your website then falls into place. And then you think about your communications with Jen. Does she want to hear from us on a weekly basis, a monthly basis? What types of things does she want to see from us? Does she have time to read blog posts? Would she prefer videos or podcasts? So once you have that target audience in place, then you can start to put into place everything else behind that.
Yeah, I think part of doing all of that, though, really is to serve the purpose of having the folks who come to our website to build that relationship, right? And when you build a relationship with someone where you feel like you're resonating, like their story resonates, and you're like, I like this person. It's like me. Are they talking to me? They must be talking to me. And when people feel like you're talking to them, this bizarre thing happens where they start to trust you, right? Because they start to have this relationship with you. And so that's the whole goal in getting very clear about who that person is. Because when people come to our website, they feel like they have this intimate relationship with us. So everything that you do is to try to get an investor educated, one, but two, to the point of saying, yes, I want to invest. Yes, I want to do this. And yes, I want to do it alongside you. And so getting that clarity and getting that, getting down to that granular level of who this person is helps us bridge that relationship so that by the time we get on the phone with them, they already feel like they know us. I get that all the time. Dan, I'm sure you do too. But people have heard us on podcasts. They've, read our blog posts. They've, watched Annie's videos. They feel like they know us already. And so gaining that clarity on who that person is and speaking always to that person is how we're able to bridge that relationship and grow our business.
And don't be afraid to tell your story, and don't be ashamed to tell your story, because the more times you tell your story, the more people you will connect with.
That's right.
Absolutely. Right.
So what's one piece of advice that you would have for people to help them kind of scale their business?
The one piece of advice I would have is don't do it alone. It's a lot. Somebody asked for the checklist for creating a syndication. That would take many, many pieces of paper to create the full checklist because there's so much to do. And, I mentioned that at Goodegg, we focus on raising capital. And that's because, there's so many pieces. We started out at a point where we were like, let's do everything, but it was too much. And we bit off this piece that we could do really well, and we wanted to focus on doing that really well. And so what I would say if you're starting out is, don't go it alone. Either find a partner or invest in coaching or a program so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Because honestly, Thomas, there is a checklist out there for creating a syndication. It's just really long. And you have to figure out what pieces of that syndication you want to bite off and focus on. And so part of that process is meeting with other people, partnering with other people, trying things, and learning from others who have been there and done that before.
Yeah, and I would just add that before you go out and look for a partner, one good thing that I think served both Annie and I really well was knowing what our strengths are versus our weaknesses. So really take a moment and be honest with yourself. Like if you know you're not good at something, don't try to pretend like you can handle that and you're good at it. Like just be honest, because your business is going to go farther, faster if you can leverage the strengths of someone else that is your weakness. So that's how Annie and I kind of came together. Is she was like, I'm really good at this and not so good at that. And I was like, that's so funny because I'm good at that, but not so good at this. And so we had that, complementary skill set. And that's really where the conversation started. Had I not thought about what are my strengths or what are my weaknesses, I don't know that we really would have come together and been like, oh my gosh, she just said that one thing was and then I just knew right then, like, boom, that's the right person. But, if I didn't think about that beforehand, I might not have known. So really take the time to get to know who you are, what your strengths are, and then definitely don't be afraid to go out there and share a part of your business, to partner with someone. I mean, that's what syndication is all about. At the end of the day, this is a team thing. It's not, me and myself. So yeah.
To add a little color to that, I'll just let people know. So basically, Julie and I had met at this conference, and we had started talking about just our mutual interests in real estate and what we were each doing. We didn't talk about partnering at all, that first conversation. And then we came together months later, and we had both been working on our businesses separately. And Julie said, what do you love about this business? And I said, oh my gosh, if I could just sit there and create content all day long, do blog posts and videos and just focus on the education piece and the marketing piece, I would be in heaven. If I had to take one thing off, it would be, these investor calls. They're sort of getting in the way of my blogging. And that's when she said, oh my gosh, that's the one piece that I love. I sit in front of a blank screen and I don't know what to write for those blog posts, even though I know I should be writing something. And so it can be even as small as that, as like one person loving to write and the other person loving to talk on the phone. And that was the beginning of how we started to explore this partnership. And then we realized we had a lot of other complementary skill sets as well.
Well, one of the things I like the most about your group, Goodegg Investments, is the educational component to it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm excited that you guys have this new Real Estate Accelerator course. And I want to talk about that a little bit because, I'm sure that people that are watching are going to be asking some questions. And I know we have some people on the webinar today that this is probably one of their very first webinars they've been on, or educational pieces that they've been on, to even learn a little bit about syndication itself. And we've had some questions already come through about, what is a PPM and what is syndication and various things like that. And obviously, some checklists that Thomas has asked about here as well for syndication. So talk to us a little bit about this Real Estate Accelerator course. Who is really your target student that you're looking for that could maybe you guys can benefit the most with this Real Estate Accelerator course?
Yeah, so I'm so happy that you brought this up, because Real Estate Accelerator is really our course that we've wanted to put out for a long time. And it really teaches people soup to nuts, everything that they need to know to run a business just like Goodegg Investments. We really, unlike a lot of the other programs out there that focus on the high level, what is a syndication and how does it work, we really get into the weeds with you, and we show you exactly step by step how we do it in our business. So when we talk about our process for bringing in new investors, we show you exactly the emails that we send out. We show you where to put the button, where we put the button. We show you what happens when you click on that button and how to build out that automation so you don't have to do that every time you release a deal. And so as for who the course is right for, though, so I know we have some people on the webinar who are very new to syndication. So I would say that before you jump into a course like Real Estate Accelerator, if you think that you might want to someday raise capital and or run a syndication of your own, then I would say one of the first things that you might want to consider is to invest passively in a real estate syndication first, just to figure out how the whole thing works. It's not only an investment for your wealth, but also an investment for your education, because through that process, you'll learn exactly what a PPM is, because you'll be going through it as an investor. You'll learn exactly the cadence of distributions. You'll learn the questions that you will have as an investor that you'll be asking the syndicator or the sponsor. and you'll see how they respond to you. So you'll really get a sort of courtside seats to exactly how the whole thing unfolds from an investor standpoint. And then once you get through that process, or if you've already invested in a deal and you're at the point where you're like, oh my gosh, I love these deals, I want to get involved more, and I've been talking to my friends and family, and I want to help them invest as well. So if and when you get to that point, that's when Real Estate Accelerator can really help you kick it up a notch. Because what we'll do is we'll help you take it from just casual conversations with your friends and family to a full-blown business where you can do exactly what we do, help educate investors and help to raise capital for these syndications.
Yeah. Yeah. And only, one of the other things I guess I would add in terms of the value that a course like this brings to the table is having a network of other people around you who are doing exactly what you want to do and who may be at different points in their business as well. So one part of the component of the Accelerator Academy is to have a mastermind where we're pulling together all of the students and we're talking about problems we're having, successes we're seeing, what is something that, hey, I have this problem, how can we solve it? But it's like being around folks like that in that mastermind setting is what'll take you from where you are today to where you want to be in a very short amount of time. So I would say it's not just that we're opening up the business and showing you our systems and processes, but it's also access to the mastermind component and then also access to Annie and I. So you get coaching sessions with Annie and I, depending on what you're, where you're struggling with and what you have problems with. But having access to someone who's been there, done that, will, again, you could go out there and do it on your own and it'll take you, it took us how long? 1.5 years? We didn't work with anyone to help us grow our business. So we kind of had to go through this through trial and error. If there was something out there like this back when we first got started, masterminds, coaching and all of that, specifically as it relates to capital raising, we probably would be where we are today, 1 year ago, So I think that's one of the other big values is, being able to shortcut that time by having access to people who are doing what you want to do and have done what you want to do.
One of the things that I feel like is very beneficial for your course that you have is, like you said, Annie, that, it's good for somebody to go in and try to passively invest first. And, a lot of times we get passive investors that come to us and they say, hey, I actually want to see about trying to bring on, 10 of my friends to invest alongside me in the next deal. And, how do I do that? And I was like, well, you need to go through a course that Annie and Julie have because they can teach you kind of step by step on how to properly do that, because there's also compliance things that you have to be cognizant of as well from the SEC and things like that. And I know you and I and all three of us on here have gone through some of that stuff ad nauseum. And, we kind of have whittled it down to what's the most important things to be watching out for. And it's important to have somebody like yourself to actually walk them through some of those steps that, you've already gone through, and you can reduce that learning curve for them.
Yeah. And I just to add on to that, I've actually had operators tell me that I don't care if you can bring $1 million to the table. What I care about is how you operate and our working relationship. So even if you could bring $1 million, $2 million, that operating partner wants to be sure that you're operating in such a way that isn't going to cause them a bunch of headaches, right? So if you've got systems, you've got processes, you can raise X amount and you get the PPM signed, you get deals funded within the time frame that you're supposed to, having all of that is going to help you on the deal sponsor side where, people want to work with you. So it's not just about money. I've had people, like I said, I've had people tell me, I don't want just the money. I'm very selective about which capital raising partners I'm working with. So having worked with a group like ours where, we're going to teach you all of those systems, you're going to have deal sponsors knocking on your door, right? Because they're going to be like, you have a system, you're able to not only raise the money, but do it efficiently and effectively. And so you need to have deal sponsors and investors, right? That's your business. And so one without the other isn't going to serve you very well.
So how could people get in touch with you if they're interested in, learning more or maybe diving into a little bit more about, what the Real Estate Accelerator course is and, maybe even joining it, obviously, and trying to become a part of the program as a student and even participating?
Yeah, so the best place to go to learn about Goodegg investments, because that's a big part of what the course is about, is, we are showing you who we are and how we've built our business. So the first thing you need to get on board with is, who is this Goodegg investments business? Who are these people? How do they operate? Get to know us first and see if our business is one that you want to emulate. And so then for that, you can go to goodegginvestments.com. I'll put both links that I'm going to mention here in the chat. And then the other is, if and when you are interested in Real Estate Accelerator to really build your own capital raising and syndication business, then I will put the link here. It's we've got a short link, bit.ly /Real Estate Accelerator. And then from there, you will really learn all that is included in the course. We touched on some of the key pieces, the coaching and the mastermind and the Facebook group, but there's a ton more that we've packed into this course. We wanted to make sure that, Julie touched on it earlier, we're first and foremost providing value. And so that's what we've focused on in this course, is not the price point or how much we're going to make from it, but really how can we best help people get from where they are to their goal of having their own real estate syndication business. And so we've packed all of that into the course. And it is just launched this week. And so we're excited about that. We've got a great group of people, and it's not too late if you're at the point where you're ready to take your business to the next level or to start a syndication business. We do still have a couple of spots available. So reach out and let us know if that's something that you would be interested in. I'll put our emails in here as well.
Awesome,
so you can reach out directly.
What is the course more of like online videos, or is it more of interaction? Is it kind of a combination? Can you speak to that kind of point as to what would a student expect?
Sure. It's a combination of all of that. And so over the course of 6 weeks, each week we release a new batch of content that includes videos and PDFs that will walk you through these exercises to really build your business. And so we start with the basics in week 1, and we really go through to everything within that 6 weeks. But along the way, you are also getting coaching sessions with me and Julie. And so you get 9 coaching sessions over the course of 3 months. And then you also get a mastermind session every month for a year. So we require that you commit to the program for a year, because we know businesses are not built overnight. And we're here with you for the long haul. We want to be here with you step by step as a resource for you as you continue to grow and scale your business. And so that's why it's a 6-week course, and then 3 months of coaching, but then a year commitment. And what that year commitment includes is that access to that support network through that Facebook group and that mastermind, those mastermind sessions. And then also, because education is such a big part of building your business and bringing on those investors, we also give you a blog post, a done-for-you blog post every week for that entire year. So by the end of the year, you'll have 52 blog posts on your website to educate your incoming investors. They are copy and paste, just like everything else in the course. Everything is as easy as it can be, copy and paste, plug and play, so that you really don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just take exactly what we've done and plug it right into your business.
Well, that's pretty exciting. So I hadn't really talked to you a lot about the different nuances and the details inside. So it's good to kind of know that for myself, because I've sent a few people to you guys that have been interested in, doing some stuff with our group. And I'm like, you got to pass their test first. And if you can pass their final exam, then I'll let you work with our group. So that's great, because I want to make sure that, people that we work with have that same process in place, and that's very smooth and seamless, and it makes the investors feel comfortable as well. Well, guys, I really appreciate
Mhm.
appreciate you coming and participating with this webinar and providing the information that you have. I know there's been a lot of people that have been on here that are new, and I know a lot of people that have been on here that have been on to several of my webinars, and they're interested. So thank you guys so much for being here and providing the value that you have.
Of course. Thanks for having us. And thanks everyone for taking the time out of your day to be here.